Mordred. Mordred, Moderedo, also known as Saber of Red, aka No Seba, is the saber-class servant of Kairi Sisagou of the Red faction in the Great Holy Grail War of Fate/Apocrypha. She is summoned by Ritsuka Fujimaru in the Grand Orders of Fate/Grand Order. She is also known as Imo-san, in Kohaise. The Knight of Treachery, Hangyaku no Kishi, and the son of King Arthur, but she is actually female despite being raised as the secret male heir to the throne. She became known as a rare villain who managed to tarnish a glorious legend at the end of her life. She was conceived between Artoria and her sister, Morgan Le Fay, through unorthodox circumstances. Artoria, normally female, was a pseudo-male at the time due to Merlin's magecraft in order to consummate her marriage with Guinevere. During this time Morgan enchanted Artoria with a spell to extract sperm from her. Morgan developed it within her own ovary, and made the child into a homunculus clone of Artoria. Due to her status as a homunculus, she was given a much faster growth period than a regular human being, and her lifespan was far shorter. She was raised in secret and told to hide her status and obey the king until the time was right. Told that it is her right to inherit the throne, Morgan bid her to one day defeat the King of Knights and take his place. She did bear that same obsession as her mother, but before all that was her adoration for King Arthur. She felt ashamed of her twisted birth, unconsciously acting jealous of normal people, and, with the special innocence that children possess, she worshipped the perfect king. Given a helmet she was told never to remove in front of others, she was eventually sent to Camelot under Morgan's recommendation, and through a presentation of her own superb swordsmanship, became one of the Knights of the Round Table. She was given her sword despite her unknown origins because of her abilities and straightforward mental chivalry. She protected the way of the knights much like that which could only be found in picture books, working hard daily in being the ideal knight, all while hiding her dislike of others. In the end, even that innocence was shattered by Morgan, who revealed the secrets of her birth. She learned of her parentage and was told that the king didn't know either. Morgan tried to instill that the king would never accept such a filthy child, but she was, while shocked, wrapped in joy. While not a proper human being, sharing the same blood as the king, being the son of a superior king, she was proud of the fact that she was not human. She felt that in name, reality, mind, and body that she was fit to be the true successor of the King of Knights. She went without having the slightest feelings of rebellion, spurred on by the truth, and approached the king with delight. Raised without a father, the king was the very form of a godlike father to her, but Artoria rejected her very clearly. She said that, while Mordred is certainly born from her and her sister's plotting, that she will not recognize Mordred as her son, or give her the throne. Mordred believed that it was all due to the king's hatred for Morgan, that it would be impossible for her son to be accepted. Thinking that was the reason her title was the weakest, believing that no matter how hard she tried, even if she excelled over everyone, that the king would forever view her as a dirted child from the moment she was born from Morgan, her great love for the king up until then made her hatred burn. Resulting from that, the distrust of the Round Table towards the king spread, and the reins of power in Camelot were seized once the king departed for the Rome expedition. Mordred became the leader of the rebellion, representing the national discontent towards Arthur. After the king finally returned from a long and tiresome battle, Mordred raged, claiming that she hated the king and that only she was fit for the throne. The truth of the matter was that she only wanted to be accepted by Artoria and wanted to be called son by her. The conflict eventually led towards a final fight, the Battle of Camlan, where both armies were dying in heated battle. The few knights that stayed with the king soon died off, leaving only the two of them standing. The two faced each other on a hill of swords in the middle of a blazing battlefield, where Mordred pointed out that the country had ended and that the victor no longer mattered because everything was gone. Blaming the situation on the king for not giving her the crown, she asked if the king hated the son of Morgan that much. Artoria emotionlessly replied, "Not once did I despise you. There was only one reason I would not give you the throne. You didn't have the capacity of a king." Mordred charged forward while driven on by passion, and was eventually defeated in single combat, collapsing while still pierced by the holy spear Rangaminiad. Freed of the mask forced upon her, with a face identical to her father, she said, "Father," all while reaching out to touch the king with blood-soaked hands at least once, but was not even granted that wish as she fell. Due to being bound by a strong curse, Mordred still swung her sword after her death, leaving a fatal wound on Artoria, who later died of her wounds. Appearances. Mordred is small in stature, covered completely in thick armor that entirely wraps her small frame. The single mass of steel and her face-covering helm conceal both her race and gender, so those seeing her face are often surprised by her being female. She needs to remove her helm to use her noble phantasm, so she cannot help revealing her appearance when utilizing it. Though she has the face of a young girl, Kairi also sees the possibility of her being male when first seeing her face. Her physique is a complete match to Artoria. Due to only having her armor, she cannot remain materialized in public without modern clothing. In Saigasora, Kairi buys her a tube top that exposes her abdomen and a crimson leather jacket. Ironically, for someone who despises being identified by her gender, two of her primary outfits leave her toned physique highly exposed. While not providing enough coverage for the cold autumn season, her status as a servant makes weather a non-issue for her. Personality. Mordred is extremely prideful and haughty, boasting herself to be equal or better than her father in the ways of ruling and swordsmanship, and believes only her status as the child of Morgan caused her to be rejected. Rather than simply wish on the Grail to become king, she instead wishes to use it to challenge the Sword of Appointment as a method of proving kingship that even her father could not deny. She does not even think of failure, boasting overpowering words from a clear and unclouded voice that shows dignity befitting of a king. She abhors any discussion of her sex, displaying clear killing intent even towards her own master. She says with no uncertainty that the topic is never to be brought up before her. She does not display any issue in wearing clothing that shows off her body. Kairi is unable to determine her true thoughts about her father, believing them to be on the thin line between love and hate. He feels that she was certainly greatly influenced by her father, leading to the rebellion. He cannot tell if it was out of wishing to become more like her father or to deny the way of the king, or whether it was right or wrong, but considers it to have been a courageous act either way. She is seen in history as the antagonist who deceived the legendary king of knights, whose name remains carved in Britain even in modern times. He feels that the one who attempted rebellion with the king's men is more interesting than Arthur, the very manifestation of chivalry. While she has the face of a fair, young girl, that does nothing to hide her brutal nature. She is filled with pure rage over the events of her life, and she does not bother to conceal it in the first place. She can be likened to a berserker during battle, her glaring eyes displaying a mix of joy for battle and cruelty. While noble phantasms are normally a source of pride, hers, crowned with the name of her father, it is closer to a sort of grudge. While there were many knights of the Round Table who were divided into allies and enemies towards the end of their country, it had been a place of lively discussion for them all. It was not by design that those events had transpired, so it would be odd for most of them to hate it. Mordred, who rebelled against the king, is likely the only one to revile it, hating it with such a passion that even a shard of it brings out rage in her. Due to their affinity with each other, she is able to get along well with her master, and he believes they are very alike in their overabundance of confidence. Used to the eccentricities of Magi from being with her mother, she still manages to find displeasure with his morbid tastes as a necromancer, but can do little to argue with him about them. As being in spiritual form makes her feel uneasy, claiming that she cannot calm herself without having her feet firmly planted on the ground, he agrees to buy her clothing. She is only used to wearing her uncomfortable armor, so she feels much more free without having to wear it. Mordred both envied and despised humans due in part to her short lifespan as a homunculus. She compares humans to livestock whose only saving grace is their ability to speak. Slightly intelligent beasts that can become either good or bad depending on the situation, who abandon all manners and virtue when faced with poverty. She hates how humans uphold grudges while also forgetting their debts to others. They'll do good deeds when it's convenient, but overlook great evil when it's too troublesome to them. They act out selfishness, and if they fail, they'll blame it something else besides themselves. Mordred doesn't consider humans worth protecting, not caring for neither those who followed in her rebellion against King Arthur nor those who remained loyal. She found her followers foolish for claiming she was more human than the cold and rational King Arthur, as she only cared for herself. She found them strange for praising her as the opposite of the inhuman King Arthur, who tried to save as many lives as possible, even though she thought nothing of saving anyone. It was vexing to her that others thought she rebelled for their sake, when she only rebelled for her own. She also found it vexing that her followers would abandon King Arthur, who was fully devoted to them. Abilities. Being a knight of the Round Table, Mordred is one of the greatest knights to ever live and a hero sung of in legends. As such, when summoned as a servant, she boasts indisputable fame and strength. Being a first-class servant, Mordred possesses power worthy of the Saber class, the one said to be the greatest among the 7 servants. Mordred boasts strength rank B+, endurance rank A, agility rank B, mana rank B, etc. Aside from luck, all her parameters rank above C, truly fitting for her class. In particular, her strength is extraordinary, as a plus is a rare modifier that allows the particular value to multiply for an instance. Although Mordred possesses the high parameters and attack power of her class, making her unlikely to lose to any other servant, when comparing them to her father's, the King of Knights, Mordred's specs are overall lower. The difference between the two is such, that Gawain claims that he'd normally defeat Mordred without breaking a sweat, even at night, when he's 3 times weaker than during midday, state in which he is considered to be an equal to King Arthur by some. Nevertheless, Mordred is an incredibly powerful servant due to possessing incomparable strength, and as such, she consumes an incredible amount of magical energy in exchange. Combat. Mordred's fighting style is focused on obeying her instincts and optimizing her fighting habits with the greatest efficiency. During battle, Mordred shows a truly superior competence, and due to her doctrine to make things right, she would peruse deliberately of even unfair tactics. She does not move with the elegance of a knight or display the beauty of swordsmanship, but instead fights with abandon like a berserker or a wild beast. She uses her two-handed sword with a single hand, and rather than simply doing so as to punch an opponent, she will even go as far as throwing her sword should it grant her victory over her opponent. Normally the very heart and soul of the knight, she views swordsmanship as only another means of victory, and she is willing to punch, kick, or bite to win over her opponent. Her strikes are superhuman attacks that transcend the domain of humans, as seen when she masterfully parried a thrust from Karna. In terms of sheer power as a heroic spirit, she is overwhelmingly superior to Astolfo. Even without using her full strength, Mordred is capable of moving like solid metal mass sped around like a cannonball, disintegrating Avisprin's golems in the process. Although his golems are beyond comparison, possessing power to fight evenly against low-ranking servants, they barely lasted 1 attack, 3 at most, before being cut down. However, the purpose of those golems was strictly detection and giving reports. Had they been made for combat, they could have overwhelmed her with sheer numbers. Mordred might not get injured against 10 or 20 of them, but if she had been attacked in waves with golems numbering beyond 100, the outcome would have become uncertain. However, in truth, it was expecting too much for her to be taken down by even the battle-type golems. After witnessing her fight, Siegfried responded that he would be able to defeat her. Chiron also noted that although she's definitely a difficult opponent, she should not bring them great trouble once they determined the nature of the noble phantasm concealing her true name. Based on the feats Mordred performed alongside Jing Ku and Spartacus against Prince of Longling, Qin Shi Huang and the captain of his royal guard agreed that Qin Liangyu would be strong enough to defeat all 3 of them by herself. Although Mordred was confident that she would be able to stop Spartacus from marching to the Chinese Lost Belt's capital by targeting his knees, even with Jing Ku's help, they were unable to subdue him because he kept getting stronger thanks to crying warmonger. Aside from her overall abilities, Mordred's defensive capabilities are also considerably high thanks to her armor. With it, she survived Frankenstein's fully powered attack, which had also been further strengthened by a command spell. As such, she didn't even notice when Tristan accidentally shot her in the back with one of his arrows, only feeling a small cut in the back for a time. Although Chiron's arrows can definitely kill everything in its path, thanks to her heavy armor, the arrow that had been aimed at her chest was deflected and pierced her shoulder instead. Since Chiron was unable to see any weak points in her armor and feared that she might escape after he used his noble phantasm, he withheld from using it. However, no matter the toughness of Mordred's armor, it amounted to nothing before King Arthur's Rhongomyniad, which pierced her chest, killing her. During her fight with Siegfried, Mordred hadn't yet healed all the wounds she had sustained in her attempt to flee from Frankenstein's blasted tree. Although her B+ strength should be enough to damage Siegfried, her peerless strike was unable to pierce his harder than steel skin. After the two exchanged a few blows, it was made abundantly clear that Sieg had not only perfectly reproduced Siegfried's physical abilities, but also inherited his abundant accumulated battle experience as well. By Sisigu's rough assessment, he was almost even with her in terms of stats. To make it worse, he was better in terms of defense in a straight-up match thanks to his armor of Fafnir. It was in this situation that Mordred and Sisigu agreed to use a command spell for as long as he fought Sieg. Normally, a command spell is used in a more narrowly defined way, such as, for example, a spatial jump equivalent to magic. If not used in such precisely defined way, the binding force of the command spell weakens. The order, defeat Siegfried, was vague, so the boost only allowed Mordred to raise her power to its max. Nevertheless, being now able to use her full strength, her slashes were able to cut him. In a contest of pure physical strength, Mordred with both her mana burst and the boost of the command spell was stronger. Skills. Class skills. Magic resistance, B rank cancels spells with a chant below 3 verses. Even if targeted by greater magecraft and greater rituals, it is difficult for her to be affected. It is likely thanks to the rank of this skill being this high that Mordred seemingly received no damage from Jack the Ripper's mist. Although breathing inside the mist makes her body feel somewhat heavier, Mordred judges that it wouldn't impede her at that level. Riding, B rank most vehicles can be handled with above-average skill. However, Mordred cannot ride the likes of phantasm races such as monstrous beasts. Personal skills. Instinct, B rank during battle, one is able to always feel the optimal course of action. Visual and auditory obstacles are halved. When fighting Jack the Ripper, Mordred's sharp instinct made Jack's mist no obstruction at all for her, and thus, she didn't mind the worsening visibility at all. It is thanks to this skill that Mordred was able to respond to Jack's surprise attacks. Mana Burst, a rank Mordred's weapons and body are infused with magical energy just like her father. With the instantaneous release of her energy, Mordred can elevate her ability as if it were jet propulsion. This allows her to rush forward with a momentum like that of a bullet's, and swing her oversized sword with ease. Her stomp has enough strength to shake the earth, and the speed of her charge pierces the sound barrier. With such speed, such destructive power, even the strongest land weapon of modern war, the main battle tank, would be pulverized. Furthermore, by taking off her noble phantasm helm, Mordred is able to clad her body in more mana. By completely removing the armor weighing down, Mordred is able to jump into the air with this skill and reach Semiramis' hanging gardens of Babylon on her own. Her augmented physical strength is enough to overwhelm fighters of much greater stature and even fight equally with the King of Knights. By explosively accelerating her speed with this skill, Mordred was able to fight on par with Chiron. In her charge, Mordred's sword would have definitely dealt Chiron a fatal blow had it hit him, however, Chiron was able to send her flying through the air with a throwing technique. Because there would have normally not been any strength behind the blade close to the handle, Chiron had judged that it would have only been strong enough to cut his leather armor when he threw her. However, Chiron fell down to his knees in anguish. He had underestimated her too much. In spite of receiving Mordred's strike under most likely the very best of conditions possible, the wound on his collarbone was too deep. Being unable to move his right shoulder, he could not think of a way to deliver a final blow to Mordred no matter how he moved or fought. Thus, he retreated before Mordred got back up. Furthermore, Mordred can remove her helmet to use an attack called Crimson Lightning, where she unleashes all her mana stored in her sword as crimson-colored lightning. This attack allowed her to vanish Jack the Ripper's mist. Battle continuation, B rank. This skill represents her will to not give up. It was thanks to this strong curse that bound her body that she was able to give Artoria a mortal wound even after death from having been pierced with the Holy Lance. Charisma, C rank. A rare skill that represents the natural talent to command an army. During team battles, one's team's abilities are elevated. Mordred's charisma fully shows itself during the rebellion. Noble phantasms. Her sword, Clarent, was originally a B rank sword bestowed during the succession of kingship used to amplify the king's authority, the king's royal aura. It raises the owner's physical stats by 1 rank, and grants and raises the skill, Charisma. Mordred was never acknowledged as king though, so the sword itself is lowered by 1 rank and she cannot acquire any bonuses while wielding it. However, she can still use its amplification ability to launch Clarent Blood Arthur by using her Mana Burst skill to force her excessive hatred for her father into the sword in the form of magical energy, allowing her to cut down most servants in a single slash. This noble phantasm is strong enough to surpass Tesla's own lightning, defeating him in the process, or to blow up a mountain along with Ritsuka's party. Despite its power, Mordred judged that heroes such as Altera, Iskandar, Ku Chulainn, or Hector could take a blow from Clarent to the face and keep standing after the dust settled. Xiang Yu evaluated its temperature and magical energy release after being struck by it, and he ranked its threat level as minimal. All this, while Xiang Yu was simply warming up. When clashing with Siegfried's Balmung, Clarent Blood Arthur was slightly superior. What decided the battle between them was not their skill, their power, or the difference in power between their noble phantasms. Between his noble phantasm, which destroyed the entire surrounding area in a wave, and Mordred's, which destroyed all existing material in its path in a straight line, Mordred's noble phantasm had the advantage in terms of their respective natures. If Sieg had been a few steps closer, the battle might have gone differently. Nevertheless, when their trump cards clashed, Mordred noticed that Sieg hadn't been using Siegfried's full power. Although his power was definitely equal to that of Siegfried, Sieg hadn't reached his mind and spirit. As a result, she had been able to stay one step above him in everything during battle. Most likely, his resolve would be even greater when he next transformed, and he would be strong to match her. Then, if he transformed a third time. In the Camelot Singularity, Mordred received the gift of Rampage from the Lion King. In exchange for burning out her soul, she can unleash her noble phantasm without limit, to the point that fighting 3 servants, Arash, Bedivere and Mash at once isn't even considered a game to her. She is weakened in this state, however, as her armor is constantly rejecting the gift since it was made to rebel against King Arthur. Mordred's final noble phantasm is her helmet's secret of pedigree. With it, Mordred's personal skills and noble phantasms tightly related to her true name are concealed within her status information. However, when unleashing Clarence's whole power, the helmet must be removed. If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.